I didn't walk away from love because I became stronger. I walked away because I noticed something no one warns you about. Winning can hollow you out. Not all at once, not dramatically, slowly, quietly. Like something leaking out of you while everyone else is applauding. There was a night, I remember it too clearly, top floor, floor-to-ceiling glass. The city stretched out like it belonged to me, lights flickering, cars moving like blood through veins, everything alive, except the room I was standing in. It was silent, not peaceful, silent, and I caught my reflection in the glass. Perfect suit, perfect posture, a man who had figured it out. But there was something off, something I couldn't name at first. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't exhaustion, it was absence, like I was there, but not fully inside my own life. That's when it hit me. Every time I let someone get close, I paid for it in pieces of myself. Not obvious pieces, not things you can point to, subtle things. The way I softened my voice, the way I explained myself when I didn't need to, the way I started questioning decisions I used to make without hesitation. I told myself it was compromise, growth, connection, but if I'm being honest, it felt more like erosion. And here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. Love doesn't always build you. Sometimes it teaches you how much of yourself you're willing to lose just to keep someone from leaving. I learned that the hard way. There was a time, I don't talk about it much, when I gave someone access to parts of me I had spent years protecting, not because they earned it, but because I wanted to believe they would. That was my mistake, not loving, expecting that love would be handled carefully. You ever notice how the strongest people don't break loudly? They adjust, they adapt, they keep functioning, while something underneath quietly disconnects. That's what happened to me. I didn't explode. I didn't chase. I didn't beg. I just withdrew, piece by piece. Until one day, I realized I wasn't reacting the way I used to. Things that should have mattered didn't. Conversations felt like noise. Even moments that used to feel alive felt distant, like I was watching my own life instead of living it. And that's when I made the decision. Not out of anger, not out of pain, out of clarity. I stopped looking, not because I didn't want connection, but because I didn't trust what it would cost me next. There's a difference. I built something after that, something solid, predictable, controlled, a life where nothing could touch me unless I allowed it, and I became very selective about that. But control comes with a price no one talks about. When nothing can hurt you, nothing can reach you either. And I knew that. I just decided it was worth it, because losing yourself slowly, that's worse than being alone. Or at least, that's what I convinced myself. But let me ask you something, and don't answer this too quickly. How much of yourself have you already traded, just to feel wanted, not loved, wanted? Because those two things aren't the same, and confusing them will cost you more than you think. I used to think I could manage it, balance it, keep my edge while letting someone in. I was wrong. Every time I opened that door, something shifted, something I couldn't always get back. And the scariest part? It didn't feel like I was losing anything until it was already gone. So I made a rule. No more searching, no more leaning into that uncertainty, no more giving someone the chance to reshape me in ways I couldn't control. It sounds cold. Maybe it is. But it kept me intact. Or at least, it kept the version of me I recognized. Because here's the part I haven't fully figured out yet. When you protect yourself long enough, you stop remembering who you were before the armor. And sometimes, late at night, when everything goes quiet again, I wonder if I walked away from love, or if I walked away from the last version of me that still knew how to feel it. I didn't become untouchable by accident. I built it, deliberately, piece by piece, decision by decision, until there was nothing left anyone could grab onto without my permission. That's the part most people misunderstand. They think distance is emotional weakness. It's not. Distance is discipline. I remember a night, dim lighting, a private room above the noise of a crowded place, voices below, muffled laughter bleeding through the floor, but up there, it was controlled, predictable. Mine. She sat across from me, saying all the right things. Calm voice, measured tone, the kind of presence that usually pulls people in. But I wasn't leaning in anymore. I was observing, every pause, every shift in her expression, every subtle attempt to get closer. I saw it before it happened. Not because I was special, but because I had trained myself to see patterns instead of people. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't experiencing the moment, I was managing it. That's what armor does. It turns connection into calculation. And the dangerous part? It works. No surprises, no emotional blind spots, no sudden losses that knock the breath out of you when you weren't prepared. Just control, clean, efficient, safe. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you start analyzing every interaction, you stop feeling any of them. I didn't notice it at first. It felt like growth, like evolution. I was sharper, harder to impress, impossible to manipulate. But underneath that control, something else was happening. I stopped reacting, not in a calm, grounded way, in a disconnected way. Compliments didn't land, silence didn't bother me. Even tension felt muted, like I had lowered the volume on my own emotions just to avoid hearing anything that could hurt me. And I told myself that was power. But power isn't supposed to feel empty. You ever sit across from someone who should make you feel something, and there's just nothing? No spark, no pull, no resistance, just neutrality. It's not peace. It's absence. That realization didn't come all at once. It came in fragments. Like the way conversation started feeling predictable. Like the way I could walk away from anyone without looking back. Like the way I stopped wondering, what if? Because I already knew I wouldn't let it get that far. That's when I understood. I hadn't just protected myself from pain. I had eliminated the possibility of being moved. And there's a difference. One keeps you safe. The other makes you unreachable. I remember standing alone again one night, lights off this time. No distractions, no noise. Just the faint reflection of my own outline against the glass. And for a second, I tried to remember what it felt like to actually want someone, not logically, not strategically, but instinctively. I couldn't. That scared me more than any heartbreak ever did, because heartbreak at least proves you were alive in it. This felt like I had stepped outside of the entire experience, like I had built something so effective. It removed me from my own life. And still, I didn't tear it down, because here's the part I don't say easily. I liked the control. I liked knowing no one could catch me off guard. I liked walking away untouched while others stayed tangled in emotions they couldn't manage. It made me feel above it. And maybe that's the most dangerous illusion of all, because when you start believing you're above connection, you stop realizing how much you actually need it. So I stayed there, untouchable, unreadable, unavailable, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I refused to let anything reach the part of me that still could. And over time, even that part went quiet. So let me ask you something. Are you protecting yourself? Or are you slowly erasing the version of you that could still feel something real? Because I used to think I knew the difference. Now I'm not so sure. And the worst part? I didn't even realize how far I had gone until something or someone almost made me feel it again. Silence will tell you the truth faster than people ever will. It was late. Not the kind of late filled with distractions, the kind where time slows down and everything you've been avoiding starts catching up. The room was dark, except for the glow of my phone on the table. No music, no background noise, just the faint hum of the city outside and the weight of everything I had built pressing in on me. I remember sitting there, elbows on my knees, staring at a message I had already typed out. Simple, direct, honest, and I couldn't send it. Not because I was afraid of rejection. I faced worse than that without flinching. It was something else, something harder to admit. I didn't know if the words were even real. That's a different kind of fear. When you start questioning whether what you feel is genuine or just a memory of how you used to feel. I read the message again. It sounded right. It looked right. But it didn't feel like it belonged to me, like I was trying to recreate a version of myself that no longer existed. And that's when the thought hit me, sharp, unexpected. What if I've been performing emotions instead of actually experiencing them? That thought didn't sit well. It stayed. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and tried to trace it back. When did this start? Not the success, not the distance, the disconnection, and I realized it wasn't one moment. It was a series of small decisions. Moments where I chose control over vulnerability. Moments where I stayed composed instead of being honest. Moments where I withheld just enough of myself to stay safe. Individually, they felt smart. Together, they built a version of me that didn't know how to cross that line anymore. You ever build something so strong that even you can't break through it? That's where I was sitting. Not trapped by someone else. Trapped by something I designed. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't lose yourself all at once. You lose access, slowly, until one day, you reach for something inside you, and there's nothing there to respond. That night, I tested it. I tried to feel something real, not think it, not understand it, feel it. I thought about her, not strategically, not from a distance. I tried to drop the analysis, the control, the filters, and for a second, just a second, something almost surfaced, something raw, but it didn't fully come through. like a signal breaking apart before it reaches you. That moment, that incomplete feeling, it hit harder than any rejection ever could, because it meant something inside me wasn't gone, just out of reach. And I didn't know how to get back to it. That's the part no one prepares you for. There's no guide for reconnecting with yourself after you've spent years disconnecting on purpose. No strategy, no system, just silence. And the realization that you might not be who you thought you were anymore. I looked back at the message one more time, my thumb hovered over the screen, and for the first time in a long time, I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to send it, but because I didn't know who would be sending it. The version of me that used to feel everything, or the one who learned how to feel nothing at all. That's not a small difference, that's everything. So I sat there, minutes passed, maybe longer, didn't matter. Time doesn't move the same when you're facing something internal. Eventually, I locked the phone, set it down, walked away, not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly, and that was the moment. No breakdown, no visible crack. Just a silent decision that I couldn't pretend anymore. I had mastered control, but I had lost connection, and I don't just mean with someone else, I mean with myself. So let me ask you something, and don't dodge it. If you stripped away the control, the image, the version of you that everyone sees, what's actually left underneath? Would you recognize it? Or would you sit there like I did, staring at something that should feel real, and realizing it doesn't? Because here's the part I haven't figured out yet. If something inside you goes quiet for long enough, does it come back on its own? Or does it need something, or someone, to wake it up again? And if it does, what happens when it finally does? Strength can become a hiding place. Not the kind you run to, the kind you build so well, no one questions why you're inside it. I used to think becoming stronger would make everything clearer, cleaner, easier to navigate, and in a way it did. Decisions got sharper. Boundaries got firmer. I stopped tolerating things that used to drain me. But somewhere in that process, I stopped letting anything reach me at all. There was a moment, I remember it differently than the others. Not late at night this time, early morning, just before sunrise. That strange hour where the world hasn't fully woken up yet and everything feels suspended. I was standing on the balcony, coffee untouched in my hand, watching the sky shift from black to gray. No noise, no demands, just space. And for a second, I felt something close to peace. But it didn't last. Because right behind it, almost immediately, came this awareness. No one knew where I was. No one expected me. No one would notice if I stayed there all day, or disappeared for a while. And I told myself that was freedom. But the truth? It felt like I had erased myself so efficiently. There was nothing left for anyone to find. That's when the thought surfaced. What if strength isn't what isolated me? What if I used strength as an excuse to isolate myself? That one didn't sit well, because it meant this wasn't something that happened to me. It meant I chose it, over and over again. Every time I didn't return a call, every time I kept things surface level, every time I felt the pull to open up and shut it down before it went too far. I called it discipline, but if I'm honest, it was fear wearing something more respectable. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of giving someone the wrong piece of me. Fear of investing in something I couldn't control. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you refine yourself, the harder it becomes for anyone to meet you where you are. Not because they're not capable, but because you've moved to a place they can't access. Not emotionally, not mentally. And instead of stepping down, you expect someone to climb up. That's not connection. That's distance with a better explanation. You ever notice how easy it is to say, "No one understands me"? It sounds deep, complex, but sometimes it's just avoidance, because being understood requires being seen, fully, without filters, without control, and I wasn't willing to do that, not anymore. I had spent too much time building something stable, predictable, safe, and letting someone in meant introducing variables I couldn't manage, so I stayed where I was, above it, detached enough to never be shaken, but also never truly moved. And for a while that felt like the right trade, until I started noticing something subtle. Moments that should have meant something didn't land. Achievements felt temporary. Conversations felt shallow. Even silence, something I used to value, started to feel heavier than it should. Like it wasn't chosen anymore. Like it was the only thing left. That's when I understood something I wish I had seen earlier. There's a difference between being alone and being unreachable. One is a situation, the other is a state you create, and I had become unreachable, not because no one tried, but because I stopped letting it matter when they did. That realization didn't break me, it just unsettled me, because I couldn't immediately fix it. Strength doesn't come with instructions on how to lower it. You don't just wake up one day and decide to be open again, especially when you've spent years training yourself not to be. So I stayed in that space, aware now, but still, distant, still controlled, still unwilling to take that step back towards something uncertain, because here's the part I don't say easily. I don't know if I remember how to let someone all the way in, without calculating the risk first. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm not sure I trust myself to do it without pulling back the moment it starts to feel real. So let me ask you something. Have you actually been misunderstood? Or have you just become so guarded? No one's ever been given a real chance to understand you, because there's a difference. And once you see it, you can't pretend it's the same anymore. The problem is, knowing that doesn't automatically change what you've become, and I'm starting to realize, awareness doesn't break the pattern, it just makes you conscious while you're still living inside it. So now I'm here, knowing exactly what I've built, and not entirely sure if I want to tear it down, because if I do, what's on the other side of that? Connection, or just another version of loss I haven't experienced yet, one I might not be as prepared for this time? The worst timing in your life won't feel like chaos. It'll feel like clarity. That's how it started with you. No grand entrance, no moment that demanded attention, just a presence that didn't ask anything from me, and that alone was enough to disrupt everything I had built. It happened on a night that should have been like any other. Same routine, same controlled environment, the kind of evening where nothing unexpected ever slips through. Low light, quiet room, a glass sitting untouched longer than it should have been, my phone face down, like I had trained myself to keep it out of reach unless I decided otherwise. Control, remember, but something felt off, not wrong, just unsettled, like the air had shifted in a way I couldn't immediately explain. Then your name lit up the screen. No anticipation, no strategy, just a message. Simple. And for some reason, I didn't flip the phone over right away. That hesitation, that was new. Because usually, I decide instantly. Engage or ignore. Move forward or move on. But this time, something in me paused, and I didn't like that. I picked it up anyway, read it once, then again, no hidden meaning, no emotional weight behind the words. And yet, it felt heavier than conversations I'd had that lasted hours. That's when I realized you weren't trying to reach me. You were just there, and that's dangerous. Because effort I can analyze, intention I can predict, but presence doesn't give you anything to defend against. It just exists. And somehow, that slipped past everything I had in place. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The things that change you the most don't force their way in. They don't knock. They don't demand. They quietly stand in front of you and wait to see if you'll lower your guard on your own. That's what you did. Or maybe that's what I allowed you to do. I wish I could say I handled it well. I didn't. At first, I treated it like everything else. Measured, controlled, observing from a distance, making sure nothing got too close, too fast. But there was a problem. You didn't follow the pattern. No pressure, no expectations, no subtle attempts to pull me in deeper. And that lack of agenda, it started to disarm me in ways I wasn't prepared for. You ever feel something shift inside you? Without permission? That's what this was. Small at first. A thought that lingered longer than it should. A moment where I caught myself almost looking forward to something. And I shut it down immediately. Because that's what I do. Or at least, what I've always done. But this time, it didn't stay shut. That's the part I didn't expect. Because I've built my life on the ability to close doors. Cleanly. Completely. And yet, this one didn't fully close. It stayed slightly open, just enough for something to slip through. And that unsettled me more than anything else. Because now I wasn't just in control. I was aware of something growing outside of it. And I didn't know what to do with that. There was a night. I remember this one differently. No lights, except the faint glow from outside. The room felt smaller somehow. Quieter in a way that didn't feel empty. Just focused. I sat there, phone in my hand again. Different message this time, different weight, and I caught myself thinking something I hadn't thought in a long time. What if I don't pull back? That thought alone, it didn't feel exciting. It felt dangerous. Because pulling back is what keeps me intact. It's what kept me from losing myself all those times before. So why was this even a question now? Why was I hesitating? Why was I even considering stepping into something I had already decided wasn't worth the cost? And that's when it hit me. It's not that I didn't want connection anymore. It's that I didn't trust myself inside of it. That's the real fear. Not losing someone else. Losing control of who I become when I let someone in. Because I've seen that version of me before. Open, invested, willing, and I don't know if I can afford to be him again, so now I'm standing in this space, between what I've built and what I'm starting to feel. And neither one is giving me a clear answer. So let me ask you something. What do you do when something real shows up in your life, after you've already trained yourself not to need it? Do you trust it, or do you protect yourself from it, just in case it costs you more than you're ready to lose? Because I'm right there now, and I haven't made the move yet. Part of me wants to step forward. The other part is already calculating the exit. And the truth is, I don't know which version of me is going to win this time. But something tells me, the moment I choose, there's no going back to who I was before.